The birthplace of the Bohemian Revolution from Cowork 591 Studios. This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. With co-host Dale Rueber and producer Blake Tempus. I'm Jim Gillespie, and this is the Jesup News for August 7th, 2023. On today's podcast, we talk about winners and losers. We talk about the turnout results and personal highlights of Watermelon Day. Anika Wall is with us tonight. We have a StoryCorps that we did at the Farmers Market in Independence. We look at the events inside of the Steve Brown Arts Center, and we give you the top stories in Jesup. We discuss service and art, and Dale has something special for you. Don't forget the Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has a vision for artists, young and old alike, to have the opportunity to better themselves while helping to build the skills of those around them. It will be offering up community programming starting here in Jesup before expanding to neighboring communities. Programming will include community speaker series that will spotlight and partner with local businesses to provide opportunities for community engagement. The long-range vision is to house a rural artist residency program for professional and emerging artists in all areas of the arts and humanities. We are open for people. If you are interested in hosting an artist, we have an artist from Germany that is interested in spending time in Jesup. If you are open for that or know of someone that would care to do that, let me know at jim@stevebrownartscenter.org or call me at 319-290-0241. So, Mr. Rueber,
yes,
let's start with winners and losers for the week.
Okay, well, women's soccer, and I was going to say the U.S. team, but just women's soccer in general is getting a lot of publicity, a lot of play right now, and they're in New Zealand. Is that the World Cup, or was that?
Yeah, that's the World Cup.
The American women are still playing as of this moment. They're not doing as well as people thought maybe they would because they're two-time champions, but they also are saying this just shows that the women around the world, the game is upgrading. You know, it's tougher and tougher anymore to win, and so it just seems to me like this whole women's soccer thing over the last several years, and again now it's getting lots of airplay on national news shows, and a lot of people seem to be excited about the women's soccer, and so I think compared to 10 years ago, they're doing really great, and so I think it's a great program, and it's wonderful for women to have this kind of thing to get involved with, and so they are my winners for the week.
The women are paid almost equally with men here in the United States, I believe, including flights and things like that. Unfortunately, in the countries around the world, the women are not well taken care of. For example, the Jamaican team, when they went, nobody let them know where their flight was from or what time their flight was leaving.
Yeah.
There are many American players, like the Philippine team. Many of the players on the Philippine team were Philippine Americans, and so we have the best football, or as people call it, soccer in the world, as far as women are concerned here.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. They played a team from Vietnam, which is a small country, and then a team with the Netherlands is a small country. They played them, but all of those small countries are able to field world-class teams to get involved with this, and so to me that's magnificent. So
the head of FIBA has went on vacation for this tournament. He is taking a lot of grief worldwide.
I would think so,
because he's not paying any attention to the tournament. The other problem is, especially here in the United States, where the women's team played the night before last or yesterday morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, and so nobody's watching them, and it's a hard deal. Yeah. But anyhow, my winner is a winner over my loser from last week or 2 weeks ago. Joe Biden is my winner over Tommy Tuberville. What Joe Biden did was President Trump had set up the space agency, the Space Force, our latest military,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
to go to Alabama.
Yeah.
And Tommy Tuberville has made it difficult for people to go up in rank in the military because Mr. Biden has made it easy for women to drive to a place to get abortions if they're in the military. Well, because Tuberville has been doing this, Biden stopped the movement of the space agency from Colorado Springs to Alabama.
Alabama, sure.
And so Tuberville is very upset, but he hasn't stopped his holdout yet.
Everybody's playing hardball now.
They
aren't
are.
Yeah.
They are. So it cost the state of Alabama probably billions of dollars.
Oh, yeah. Well, you think back in the 60s where all the space things, the NASA things were in Florida, and then Lyndon Johnson became president, and all at once it's in Houston.
Yes.
And, billions of dollars come through Texas, and that's how Lyndon got to be a millionaire.
Right.
Is that sort of thing. So he brought the gravy home to his home state, and because there's absolutely no logical reason that I know of why the Space Center should be in Houston, but that's where it is. And so, and Lyndon Johnson was the president, and he made it happen.
And I'll start with the losers. The losers, in my mind, are the wildlife and plants that are going extinct because of the changes of our environment, Dale. Right now, there are dozens and dozens of birds and plants and animals that are being lost because of the change of the environment.
Yeah. Now, I saw an article where if you went in the ocean, you're in Florida, being in the ocean was like being in a bowl of warm soup, that the water is so warm from all of this, these day after day after day of these very high temperatures. And a lot of animals, they're not suited for that kind of thing.
Right.
The sea creatures, and so the marine life. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be tragic.
Yeah.
All the things. So.
Who is your loser?
Oh, okay. I would pick Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein, the senators, and I think he's 81 and she's 90. And McConnell was at a press conference, and all at once he just froze, and could not speak. He couldn't, he just froze there. And of course on national TV. And then Dianne Feinstein was at a committee meeting, and they said, "Okay, it's your turn," or whatever. Well, she was just supposed to vote, yay or nay, but she thought she was supposed to give a speech, so she started giving a speech, and one of her handlers leans over and says, "Just say aye," just told her how to vote. And there's talk about these older politicians, and they keep hanging on, and so I think those two, with their problem that they had on national television, hit all the news, is maybe going to tip the edge a little bit farther to getting some of those older people out of public office that are in their late 70s and 80s and even 90s is where Feinstein could go to. So, so they were my losers. I thought they, I don't say put the nail in the coffin for people their age, but they showed why people at advanced age maybe shouldn't be making critical decisions that affect everybody in this country.
I know one of our listeners, Freddie Richards.
I know Freddie.
And Freddie has spoke to me about term limits. And I've told him that the term limits can't be changed because the people in office are the ones that vote for it. Yeah. But he says what we need is a constitutional Congress.
Yeah.
To change that.
The only thing that's scary about constitutional conference is that issue may come up, but then they could bring up anything else they want to also. And some of that stuff would be very, very scary. There's a good article, I think it was today in the Des Moines Register, about an editorial type article. And the guy said he's against term limits. He thought the voters should handle the term limits kind of thing. That the voters, if you think somebody's been in too long, then the voters need to vote that person out. It shouldn't be a law because everybody is different. And some people are sharp as a tack at 72, and some people are around the bend at 55. And
Right.
so he said his whole thing was, it's set up now, let the voters decide when your term should end. And so he's got an argument.
Yep,
So,
yep, yes, he does.
yeah, they were, and this was several years ago, maybe, I don't know what it was. They're talking about having a constitutional convention, and we said, oh, you don't want to do that because there's all these things that people have just been waiting to smash through, and you said you don't want to open up that can of worms, and they didn't at that time. And so it would be scary.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be. So Dale, would you talk about library news for
Oh,
us?
sure. The library has a Little Tot story time every Thursday at 10:30, and that'll be going strong. Get those kids started early. Spice Club, August Spice is what?
The
It's an old song.
Garlic.
Lavender blue, Billy.
lavender?
Lavender, yes. Did you know that was
Interesting.
a spice?
I did not.
I just thought it was a smell.
Yeah.
But the August Spice is lavender, and you can get some at the front desk if you want to get some at the library.
Well, what do you use that in, Mr. Reed?
Well, it says get yours today, but it doesn't tell you what to do with it once you get it. And so they need to add that to their list here. So
Okay.
I think, should we give that assignment to Drake to find out what lavender is used for? Or?
We could.
Yeah, because he could look that up real quick, couldn't you?
Sure.
All right.
They're having a dessert bar crawl, a new twist on an old favorite. Join us Tuesday, August 15th. So that's a couple weeks yet at 7 p.m. for examples of bar desserts and vote for your favorite. So more details will be coming soon. I tell you, I was in Winterset once at the John Wayne thing, and you could buy, I think it was for $10 a piece, you could get a booklet, and it's a square there, like around the courthouse. And then all these businesses were open, and every time you went into a business, you gave them a ticket, and they'd give you a little piece of pie. Only it wasn't so little. And so after I had 6 pieces of pie, I had to find somebody to give my 4 extra tickets to. I thought it'd just be little bitty pieces, but it was a nice little slice, and so I had to give away my ticket. So that was a great fundraiser, I'm sure, for them, because the pies were all donated by church ladies.
Yes.
But every store had different kinds of pie, and it was great. So
I love that.
it was wonderful. Book club. Get your copy of The Orphan Keeper by Cameron Wright at the library. And they're going to have a book discussion on Monday, August the 21st at 1 o'clock. And I'm going to try to say, but 7-year-old Chelamuthu is kidnapped from his village in India, sold to a Christian orphanage, and then adopted by an unsuspecting couple in the United States. It takes months before the boy can speak enough English to tell his parents that he already has a family back in India. Horrified, they try their best to track down his Indian family, but all avenues lead to dead ends. Meanwhile, they simply love him, change his name to Taj, enroll him in school, make him part of their family, and his story might have ended there had it not been for the pestering questions in his head. Who am I? Why was I taken? And how do I get home? And more than a decade later, he meets a girl from southern India who has surprising ties to his past. So it sounds like an exciting little book to read. And so, movie night, Monday, August 28th. Guess what the movie is?
Casablanca.
No, it's Stay Tuned for movie title. They haven't picked one yet, so they're probably still recovering from the basketball one that I warned them about. Well, I should talk to them and see what they thought of that. So, there's still the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program is going on. It's designed to be simple, the record keeping, and encourage making reading a daily habit, and that's what we really need. And so you can sign up at the library to receive a log to record your child's first 100 books, or use the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten app, which is available in your app store or on iTunes. Okay, I'm probably redoing this. We are looking for more partners to support the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. This free program provides monthly books for children ages 0 to 5 years living in the Jesup School District. The service is locally funded, and we are grateful for those who are already our sponsors. And the list they have is the Friends of the Jesup Public Library, Heartland Technology, Innovative Wealth Management, Jesup Paint and Auto Body, Jesup Chamber of Commerce, and the Jesup Public Library Endowment Fund. And so if you or anybody that you know, a business, would like to partner with the library in this program, please contact the library. And it's a great program. I highly recommend it. I think it's great these kids get those books and get started off as lifelong learners, and that's what we need around here. So that's the library news, Jim.
All right, thank you. This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we're at Cowork 591 Studios in downtown Jesup. From White's Funeral Home, we have one obituary this week. Kenneth Charles Grigg, 71 years old, of Jesup, Iowa, died Friday, July 21st, 2023 at his home. Kenneth was born March 16, 1952 in North Carolina, the son of Herman Cicero Grigg and Virginia Laura Grigg. In 1972, he was united in marriage to Wanya Lane Stanridge in Gastonia, North Carolina. They later divorced. Kenneth was self-employed in the concrete construction business before retirement. He also worked as a part-time peace officer. He enjoyed old cars, motorcycles, singing karaoke, and at times being a prankster. But time spent with his children and grandchildren was what he most enjoyed. Kenneth is survived by his former wife, Wanda Standridge of Jesup, two sons, Jason Grigg of Jesup and Josh Grigg of Waterloo, grandchildren Alexa Gibbs, Lindsay Cook, and Alana Grigg, great-grandchildren Weston, Kaysen, Avea, and one on the way, three sisters Kathy Spargo, Karen Baker, and Carla McClure, five brothers Kelvin Grigg, Carl Grigg, Kelly Grigg, Kelman Grigg, and Kevin Grigg. Also his uncle Paul Grigg and many nieces and nephews. His parents, one brother Keith S. Grigg and one sister Kristen Armstrong, preceded him in death. White Funeral Home was in charge of arrangements. We have a very special StoryCorps today. Garrett Eisele from Independence talks about being a father.
Oh, okay.
And so remember, StoryCorps is a nonprofit organization out of Ohio that stores your story, and it also puts it in the Library of Congress. So if you get a chance and you want to hear some of the local StoryCorps, look out Buchanan County, Iowa, and you can find a number of stories. Okay. This is Garrett Eisele from Independence, Iowa, on fatherhood.
I am Garrett Eisele. Today is July 1st. I'm 47 years old. I'm here with Jim Gillespie from Independence, Iowa, and here we go.
I'm talking with Jared today about raising children. Jared, I appreciate you doing this. When did you first find out that you'd be a parent?
16 years ago.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. And how'd you feel?
I was shocked, nervous, but I was happy. So.
Did you always know you wanted to be a parent, Jared?
Yeah. Yep. I always knew I wanted to have kids. Did a lot of work in the school system with early childhood development, chemical dependency. So I always liked kids.
Can you describe the moment when you saw your child for the first time?
Yeah, he was crying for sure. So he came out and he let out a big wail and looked just like me and had a lot of hair on his head. So it's a family tradition to have quite a bit of hair when you're born from the Eisele family. So
how has being a parent changed you, Jared?
You always want more for your kids. You just kind of work harder. You have more aspirations for them. You want them to achieve more and just be happier than what you were. So,
what have you learned about yourself from being a parent, Jared?
Well, my wife always said that she wishes we had a girl so I could be a little less aggressive and a little more calm, but that didn't work out. So we got 2 boys, just to let you know, 2 boys. That patience is a virtue, and being able to listen in more detail and looking at things from a younger perspective is very helpful.
Have you changed how you've raised Dawson compared to how you raised Dylan?
Yeah, listen a little bit more, a little more open-minded. You always think that you could have done better the second time around with something than you did the first time on anything. So just being more optimistic, I guess.
You talked about dreams for your children. What are some dreams for your children, Jared?
Well, I'd like to see them, have a few more things than I did when I was growing up. We were a bigger family, didn't have as much money or have some of the finer things, in life. And I'm not saying that's the main reason for living, but just to be more comfortable is kind of what I'm referring to, is all around more comfortable, more options, more investments maybe, because there's just the world's changed so much that it's just, you have to expand a little bit more than you're living in your little box that when I was raised in. So,
do you have a favorite story about one of the boys, if not both of the boys?
Yep. Yeah, I do. Dylan and my oldest nephew, which is a year older than Dylan, were outside playing wiffle ball, and I came out and I told them to come and eat, and they said, well, one more pitch. And I said, okay, no problem. Well, I no sooner get in the house and start stirring the food, my nephew runs in the house and he's bleeding, and I look and he lost his front tooth. I'm like, okay, how did that happen, guys? Like, you were just playing wiffle ball. Well, it comes to find out that Dylan ran into the garage, got a wooden bat and a baseball, and said just one more pitch, and Anthony pitched it one time, and Dylan hit it right back to his face and knocked his tooth out within about 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then with Dawson, he loves yogurt, so my wife left him when he was young, probably 4 months old, in the high chair to eat, and just a cup of yogurt, and she went to switch the laundry over, which was a matter of 3-4 minutes, came back, and it was all in his hair. He had nothing left in the cup. It was all hair. His hair was all slicked back. He had it in his face, all over his face, and it was, he looked like Fonzie with all his hair like greased back and everything, and it was we have a picture of it, and it makes me giggle to this day. So yeah, those are some things I'll never forget.
Thank you, Jared, for doing the interview.
Yep, no problem.
This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we are coming at you from the Cowork 591 studios in lovely downtown Jesup, Iowa.
Very much so.
If
I can see a tree right out the window.
There you go. Yeah. If you get a chance, stop in and see Kelly at Cowork 591 and get yourself a membership here. They are wonderful people. Next, Dale has a short presentation on Mr. Grassley.
Well, yeah, it leads to him, but because he's an example I could use. I was interested in Mitch McConnell, who quite famously now this past week was speaking to the press, was on national TV, and just seemed to lock up where he just could not say anything, he just kind of stared straight ahead. And so earlier this year, he had suffered in a fall, had some injured ribs and a concussion. Concussion effects can last a lot longer now than we used to think. it's like athletes, they keep them out of sporting events a lot longer to make sure they go through all the percussion protocol and everything. But concussions can do damage to an area of the brain that's linked to the development of seizures. Well, a doctor examining this whole thing thought there were 3 possible reasons why he had this freeze up, and one was low blood sugar, and the other was atrial fibrillation, or he could have had like a mini stroke or seizure. And so that kind of goes with the concussion, and so you have to wonder. But it got me to wonder, why do people at that age stay? Because I think I said 171 of our government officials in Congress, be the Senate and the House, are millionaires, and yet they stay year after year. And like President Biden is the oldest president in history. Trump is the second oldest. The current Congress is the oldest in more than 2 decades. And so there's a lot of older people hanging in there. Well, several years ago, I read an article about why people that get into public, and once you're in, it's a lot easier to stay in than it is to get in. But people in public office, why they strive so hard to keep these jobs, because they're not super high paying jobs compared to some business jobs. And the guy said, it's easy work. You have lots of people hired, lots of assistants and everything to help you. And it's almost like a guaranteed, as soon as you're elected, you start your reelection fund. And a lot of that money can be siphoned off to you. If you can't get the money yourself, you can hire your relatives to work for you at high salaries. And so it's really a fantastic job to get into. And so I was looking up, I thought Charles Grassley had been in a long time just to see, because the first time I ever heard of Charles Grassley was when he was a lot younger. And he was running as a farmer, so poor he had to get a job at a factory to make ends meet on the farm. That's how poor he was. And now he's the 20th wealthiest senator out of 100. And you won't believe this, but I swear this is true. I typed in Chuck Grassley, clicked on the first link, and it popped up. And you know how they have those little ads right there beside it? The first ad was, how can you tell if someone's suffering from dementia? Oh man, that can't have been by accident, but apparently it was. But Chuck Grassley, his salary is $193,400, and his net worth is $7.5 million, and it's been over $2.5 million for many, many, many years. And the one side says its source of income, besides his salary, is he's a very highly paid motivational speaker, because he really came from nothing. He was a poor farmer and has had all this success, and now he's the senior Republican senator. And also they say the calendar modeling, that there's a calendar that comes out, and his picture is in that every year. And he models for this calendar and makes a lot of money for that. Well, I tried to check that, and I could not find any other reference to that. And so we remember what Abraham Lincoln always said, right? Don't believe everything you read on the internet. So I have no idea if that's true or not. But it said his two sources of income were as a paid motivational speaker and as a calendar model. So maybe Blake could look that up for us too when he gets done with Lavender. But the whole thing is that these people are very, very old, and they have this power, and they're in a position through insider information and this sort of thing to make lots and lots of money. And we need to somehow take that out of the government, and we need to have people in there that want to serve and then go home. And I think that's kind of where we're at. And these people that hang on, where they're not doing the job. There's always about Strom Thurmond. Was he 100 years old? He was a senator, and they would wheel him in, and his aides would whisper in his ear how to vote and all this sort of thing. Well, he's not doing the job he was elected to do. His aides are doing the job, thinking for him. And so, anyway, we got to get all these old people out of government, is what I'm saying. And so that's my whole point, I guess, today.
All right. Well, thank you, Dale.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, you can.
There's a new book coming out called Filthy Rich Politicians. And so I've got this interest, so I've asked the library to purchase this for me.
Okay.
So hopefully they will. And so I will give you further information as I get it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In Jesup news, they have started North Street, so the construction is going down there. You can still get by the school and there's movement there. They are contracted to be done, I believe, they must be done in 90 days.
Is he 60 or 90? It's not very long.
Yeah. They must be done. This can't go into the wintertime.
Yeah. I was down to Quick Start today, and some lady was asking the clerk how to get to the golf course. They said, "Oh, I want to hear this." So I just thought that was interesting. So.
Right. There is a change on the week of Farmers Day next year. This is just for 1 year, correct?
1 year, yeah.
And what is that date?
June 20, 21, and 22.
For what reason?
The carnival. Well, that's when we can contract the carnival. And so we're having a meeting the 8th to go through. It's kind of like you get to talk about how everything went and then look ahead for the next. So I'll have more information next week than I have now.
Okay.
But we are having that meeting because get all the bills in and get everything paid, then you can kind of see where you stand for the next year and this sort of thing. But it's just the 1 year, unless it would go really, really well and the carnival want to come that time the next year too.
Right.
So we have a wonderful carnival. We like having that. We think it's a big draw. And so we kind of go with them as much as we can. So,
Okay.
To get to the construction, though, they're digging on the north side of the school, and they're digging on the south side of the school. Have you been there? And do you know what's going where, what they're doing, or I don't remember.
Well, they're going from would be Black Hawk Buchanan Avenue to V62, the four-way intersection.
I'm talking about the school project.
Oh, yes,
Is the
yes, I
auditorium
do.
on the south side?
The auditorium is on the north side, up by the industrial tech area,
Okay.
and the new band and vocal area is up there as well.
Okay, and then what's on the south side?
And then there are 4 new classrooms on the south side.
Okay, all right. So I had forgotten how the plan turned out.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Right. Yes. As far as more Jesup news, more Littleton news, the Littleton Free Watermelon Day was this past weekend. The numbers speculated are somewhere between 175 to 225 people were in attendance.
Very good.
The bands and artists were wonderful. The food was great. The Jesup Lions Club, thank you so much for coming out. We had boys' food truck and rolled ice cream, and then we had free watermelon, and it was an amazing thing. Chris, I cannot cry the praises enough of Chris Evans' event and rental LLC.
Yeah, those were very nice. Those tents, he had those awnings and everything. Yeah, those were very nice.
You know, although it wasn't as hot as it was on Friday, it was still very warm.
Yeah.
And we had, I was giving Chris a hard time. We had the big top over at Reyes that was 30 by 50.
Okay.
And then we had the elephant tent by the Littleton Chatham Historical Society that was 30 by 30.
Okay.
Then he had 2 stages for us, and then he had also 2 small pop-up tents, one for the small stage and one for people to sit under in front of the small stage. And all of that was a donation. Now, don't let me shortchange the others that donated. People like Reyes Concrete, Littleton Lounge, Littleton Chatham Historical Society, Jacobson Fabrication Repair, Dream Chaser Acres, Laces out of Independence, and Thomas James provided us a free dumpster for the day.
That's great.
We were Derek's Repair Shop here in town. Independence Bulletin Journal gave us several posters. We were blessed for the first year. Our goal for next year is to make enough money to pay for the programs that we have for the following year.
Sure.
Also in Steve Brown Arts Center news, received a $3,500 grant from the Buchanan County Community Foundation to be used for art supplies. We had 5 days this year of art in the park, and one of our goals next year is to have 8 days.
Okay.
So that money will go to that and some other events that we're planning. And we'd like to publicly thank the Buchanan County Community Foundation for that grant.
That will help a lot.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. I believe that's all there is in Jesup news.
How did you keep the watermelon cold?
Good question. What we did was my neighbor, Scott Hine, had 2 stock tanks.
Okay, I was going to say, I bet it was just like we used to put them in a stock tank with the water and the ice. And
Yep.
that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yep, that's what we did.
Yep.
It would have been a good guess,
That's
Dale.
the best way to make watermelon cold, I think.
Oh,
You
it
can't-
is.
You just can't do that in a refrigerator.
Oh, you can't. You can't. Oh, and that was good watermelon,
It was.
wasn't it?
It
Yes,
was.
it was.
And we talked about this earlier in the year about the rolled ice cream, but my kids and I had that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was interesting and it was very tasty.
The rolled ice cream sold 147 cups. Boyd's, I'm not sure what they sold, but they went home happy. And the Lions Club sold everything that they cooked, and they stayed open for the band. For the Bad Habits Band. The Bad Habits Band actually played 1 hour longer than they were contracted for, and I can't thank those people enough. They were incredible. It was a great crowd, probably 100 people for them. Chet Reagan and Mandy McClure, what a great job they did, and there was a nice crowd for them.
Yep.
And Belvins and Powers had anywhere from 30 to 60 people at their concert. I was so happy that we had a great number of people come out, not only from Jesup and the surrounding area, but there were a lot of people from Littleton that I had a chance to see and talk to, and they were there the whole day. So I couldn't have been happier, and I can't thank the volunteers enough that helped out.
You had a lot of your board members there, I think.
We did,
Yeah,
we did.
Wearing the shirts and helping out. That
Yeah.
was great. I thought you'd be doing that all by yourself. But it was nice to see all those helpers you had.
It was. So, all right. This is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network, and we're here tonight with Anika Wall. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the speech program at Jesup and her job in hospice. So, welcome, Anika.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anika, let's and there's so many places we can go. I was telling Anika before we started, Mr. Rueber, she is one of my favorite homeroom teachers or homeroom students, and she told me that I say that to all my homeroom kids, and she's right.
Well,
she
the
knows
question
that.
is, begs to be asked: did you ever have anybody die on stage for her?
Anybody die on stage?
Yeah, to put to the speech coach with the hospice person.
Oh, there you
funny.
go.
No?
You're funny.
So Anika, let's start with speech. How much is this is your second year in the speech program?
It's my second year as head coach. I did assist a little bit 2 years ago with just the individual kids. There was just some problems with scheduling going on, so they brought in a couple volunteers to help out with the individual program. I was very happy to do so, not a problem. So I ended up helping out with 4 events, and it was really a pleasure. I had judged a bit before that, right out of high school, just a little way to get through college, make a little extra cash. But I always enjoyed speech. It was my favorite thing about high school. It was something that I wish that I had gotten involved in sooner. So I absolutely adore it, and it's a privilege going into technically my 3rd year then, second as a head coach.
Okay, so what do you enjoy more, the team stuff or the individual stuff?
I always enjoy individual because you are able to really dive in and help each student meet their individual goals. So I have certain kids who they do large group because they like doing it with their friends and they enjoy the camaraderie that comes with large group and creating a really worthwhile performance. I had a bunch of kids who did radio broadcasting last year who had never done speech before, and they decided that that's what they wanted to do because it was pre-recorded and they would get to do it together. So there's that side of speech that I love, and helping them work through that and a lot of the general parts about speaking. How do you speak clearly? How do you write to make sure people are understanding what you're saying? And there's that side of it that you can really work on the large group side. But then on the individual side, you can get so granular and so nuanced, where we had a kid who did poetry last year, and she had never done speech before, but she was very, very passionate about it. It was what she really wanted to do. And we were able to get so detailed that we were able to go line by line and talk about what emotions she wanted to evoke in that piece as you went throughout. How do you go throughout until you get to the part where it looks like you are having a mental breakdown on stage, and really build and develop. So I personally like the individual side of it, but individual was also my favorite as a performer.
Yeah,
So I guess you could say I'm a little bit biased.
Right,
There are
right.
definitely things you can take from each season, though.
And it's a real advantage for people to know how to speak in front of a group.
Oh, definitely.
Some people would absolutely not do it, and I think
Yes.
it hurts them in some ways. And all three of my kids were in speech in one
Yeah.
way or the other, and they did 4-H, where also they had to make presentations,
Yep.
and it has helped them an awful lot in their careers and in volunteer work and working with other people and everything. I think it's a real advantage. Whereas, well, like I just said, a lot of people, they don't want to talk to anybody
Oh, yeah.
in a formal kind of way, and so.
Right.
So I think it's a very valuable story. I'm glad they have it up there, and I'm glad you're working with it.
Me
so.
too, me too. One of the biggest misconceptions we hear is that speech is really only acting, and it's only for people interested in theater. And that really isn't true. There's a whole section of, both for large group and individual, where you have to write your own piece and then
Yeah.
stand up there and deliver it. And there's a lot of power in that, being able to write and then essentially defend your work
Yeah.
in front of an audience, even if you're not actually saying, well, I did X because of Y, or this because of that. But there's a real power in being able to stand there and just do that for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, you and I talked about this before, Anika. Perhaps this later this year we can get some of your students on the air and have them do some of the stuff that they have written.
Oh, definitely. We have a very large senior class coming in for this season who I think would be more than happy to come in and perform, just for, at the very least, the extra experience.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It was a good experience.
Exactly, because once competition season starts, so we start rehearsals in early November, late October. It really depends on the musical schedule, because being in a small school, you have a lot of overlap in your kids who are involved. So maybe some groups start in October and other groups don't start until large group is done. But competitions start at the end of January.
Yeah.
So we have all that time to practice. But then once January hits, it's competitions every 2 weeks.
So how much time do you put in?
It depends on the week. Competition days are long days.
Okay, but
Oh, yeah.
are you considered a half-time employee, or just the speech? You just, if
I
you're
am
just
just-
that line for speech coach, then you're not making a whole lot of money. And it
Correct.
sounds like you're putting a whole lot of time in. And so,
Correct. It
yeah, that's
really
the way-
is a passion project.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't coach for the money. If I could do a full-time career out of this, I would absolutely love it. It would be a wonderful opportunity, but really it's there to help develop the students and to give back to the community.
So I think it's great.
What were your numbers last year, Anika?
Oh gosh, give me a minute. So in terms of events, we had 10 events entered in large group competition, and then we had 17 events entered at individual. In terms of students, I would probably say, just a rough estimation, we had probably 25 involved in large group and around 15 in individual. And those are just performers. We always have kids who start the season and then for some reason scheduling happens and they realize, I don't have the time to commit to this. So that always happens. But those are some pretty good numbers considering it's a small school. Everyone is being pulled in
Yeah.
7 different directions.
Right.
So you really sometimes have to just sit down and figure out where your priorities lie and whether that is with speech, or maybe you are working a job, or you have sports, or any other thing. So I'm very grateful for the numbers that we had last year, and I hope we continue to grow this year.
Well, Anika, you were one that proved you could do multiple things and have success at a lot of things.
I like to think I did.
Yeah, yeah. So when is your first practice here? We are doing this. Will come out August 8th. When is your first practice?
So our first official required practice will be the week of November 1st, wherever that may fall. Mm-hmm. And I want to say maybe that Monday is October 31st, but we have had students coming in and working all summer. We have one duo who they have already picked out a duo acting piece for this year, and they've been working on it because they have some goals they want to hit. They want to get straight ones at state and then hopefully be one of the first all-state noms in a long time in Jesup history for a large group. So they're willing to put in the work. I'm willing to work with them on it and help them meet those goals. But that's when our first official practice starts.
So how does it work? Like you, 1st of November, you show up and you got 25 kids.
Yep.
Okay, you're not looking for the guards and the forward. How do you, what do you do with these kids then?
Yep, definitely. So in about mid-October, we have a informational meeting, and we typically do that during homeroom. So kids are able to come in, they're able to ask questions. We ask that anyone and everyone who is interested go to that, and there we give a overview of what is speech. What are the kinds of things you can learn from it? How often does it meet? Because really for the kids, it is not a large time commitment in terms of meeting in groups or meeting with individual practices. A lot of the work for them comes on their own time and being able to read through their piece for 15 minutes a day or stuff like that.
Okay.
But we have our meeting in mid-October, and then the week after we do, especially for large group, we call them auditions, but really it's to help with placement because anyone who wants to be involved in speech can and should be involved in speech. It's not, you're not trying out for a lead role in the musical and then you're going to be denied or something like that. So then when November hits, they already have their groups, they have their practice times, and they're able to either start on their piece if it's like an acting duo or a reader's theater, or if it's something that they have to write and work together as a team, they're able to start planning and think of, okay, if we're doing a short film, what is our plot going to be? Let's start writing a script. Where are we going to be shooting this? And thinking of all those other things. So especially for those, it's really a brainstorming session the first couple weeks.
Okay, and they can't all do the same thing. So how do you determine, okay, you three are in this category, and do you determine that, or do you work? Do the kids have a preference, and you try to work them in, or how does all that work?
I like to say that it is really a collaborative effort because I have some kids who they come in and they say, I want to do group mime and I want to do this, and then I say, okay, show me what you have. Let's work through a couple mime situations and just see how you move. If you want to do radio, let's just talk through some actual radio scripts to see how you sound. And then we can get a baseline for your skill set. So that way, and then we also talk through, are you out for speech because you want to be successful and you have these really high goals set for yourself? Or are you out for speech because success is important to you, but you also want to have fun and you want to enjoy yourself? And maybe you do. You're out because we had one girl who did individual speech last year because she had been very, very involved with speech her first 2 years, but she had never said a single word because she always did mime. So she did individual speech last year because she wanted to get better at speaking in public.
Yeah.
And so you have people who go out for very different goals. So I try to pair people based on their skill sets and the goals that they have.
Okay.
Anika, do you have assistant coaches or people that help you?
Yes, I do. Tanner Ginn and Kirsten Truax, they are the band and choir instructors at Jesup. And they helped out last year. They are a great resource, especially when it comes to certain categories that even though I coach, that doesn't mean that I participated in every single category or that I've judged every single category under the sun. Yeah. But they have more experience with musical theater in particular than I could ever have. And they're very, very skilled at it, both from the performance side and from the actual vocal side. They help lead. They do lead our musical. So they have all of that experience. Ginn himself, he never participated in speech, but he was very, very active in theater and the arts once he got to Jesup. So being able to help out on that side, he was great in leading our improv teams last year. Yep. It was a challenge that I'm like, because of my schedule, I wasn't able to help coach them. So he took them. One of the groups made it to state. So great accomplishment for them. And Truax has a lot of speech experience from her days in high school on the acting and storytelling side. So we all have very different skills, and they help fit together very, very nicely.
Well, let's turn the table a little bit and talk about your job that feeds you.
My real job?
Your real job, yes. Where are you working now?
Yeah, definitely. So I just celebrated my 1-year anniversary with Cedar Valley Hospice at the beginning of July, and I'm a digital marketing and community engagement specialist there. So really my role is twofold. I run their website and social media. I help out with anything digital, so video advertising, digital ads, stuff like that. But then also on the community engagement side, I get to go out into all the different communities that we serve and give presentations about what hospice is, the different misconceptions. When do you call hospice? When do you need it? All of those different things.
What groups do you speak to, Anika?
Yeah, definitely. So primarily, we get to go and speak to a lot of different churches in the area. Any organization that needs free programming, we can then go and help out with. So we have a lot of local ladies groups who maybe they meet twice a month, and once a month is a business meeting, and once a month they bring in a guest speaker. We're able to go help out with that. We have had businesses call and say maybe they've experienced a loss in their little community. So we're able to go in and either lead a grief support group or lead a presentation. And I want to make it clear, I do not lead those grief support groups. I am not a trained grief counselor, but our grief staff is very, very well suited for those things, and I cannot speak highly enough about them. But we also have a healthcare liaison who essentially does the other side of my job. So if I go out into the community and I do presentations to businesses and churches, she is working on fostering those relationships with our different healthcare organizations, our hospitals, our assisted living facilities, and giving presentations to them.
So how is hospice funded?
Hospice is funded by the government. So we get reimbursed through Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay.
But because Cedar Valley Hospice is nonprofit, we also rely heavily on community donations.
Okay, I was wondering, because I know they do ask for donations, but then I know they
Yes.
bill people also, and so I
Yes.
just,
Yep, and because we are a nonprofit, we provide service to everyone regardless of their ability to pay.
Yeah.
So even though they may get a bill in the mail, they are not required to pay.
So,
especially if you died,
oh, I know.
they don't pay your bill.
Well, I've got to ask this question. Like the Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3.
Yep.
What would that be classified as?
That is a question I've never been asked. If you don't mind, I can look it up
Oh, yeah,
real quick
yeah,
and just
yeah.
double check.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure that I give you the right information.
Did you ever have a relative involved in hospice? You know,
I
that was
did.
dying, or-
I did. There's quite a story to that.
Okay.
Sometime we'll talk about that.
So
Okay.
we are also a 503c3.
You're a
Or
501c3.
501c3.
You are a
Yes, we are.
501c3 as well.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and you said you guys have about 114 employees.
Yeah, 100, between 110 and 115. Yep.
And how emotionally that's got to be quite a job, quite a taxing job. It's an amazing job, but it's gotta be tough
I
on
think
you.
so,
I would say.
How many
Is
patients? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
no. Is there quite a turnover?
I first started working for Cedar Valley Hospice after the pandemic. So really in every single healthcare job since COVID has happened, you have seen a turnover. I do not think that our turnover is necessarily caused by the work that we do. It is more the career, if that makes sense. Because nursing itself, when you look back to the pandemic, there were long hours. It was a very dangerous time and a time with a lot of uncertainty. So with hospice, though, you do see, and you have to have a certain employee. We say that to work for hospice, you have to have a heart for it, and you really have to truly believe in the mission. But I think part of that, people weed themselves out during the process by sometimes not even applying if they realize, well, I don't think I could work with that and see that much loss. But really, when it comes down to it, hospice it's a way to show love to those. It really is. Just like grief. Grief is love. Grief would not be there if love wasn't there at one time. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah.
So about how many patients a year would you say Cedar Valley works with? I
So-
mean, is it hundreds or is it?
It's definitely hundreds because month to month we serve at least 130 patients a month. Now, sometimes those patients are on our program for months, sometimes years at a time. Sometimes those patients are on our program for hours or days.
Yeah.
So really it just depends. We tend to see a spike around the holidays because you see families come together and they start to realize that maybe mom or dad isn't doing so well
Yeah.
and they're able to have a family meeting. So we typically see a spike around the holidays, but other than that, we are fairly consistent. But yeah,
How many beds do you guys have? Does Cedar Valley have?
so that is actually a very common misconception because we have a 6-bed facility in the Cedar Valley Hospice Home, but the majority of our hospice patients receive care at home, wherever home may be. So if they're living at home, then we're able to go into their home and provide services to them there. But the hospice home is used for individuals who they have pain that is very difficult to manage as an alternative for a hospital stay. It is also used a lot for maybe a patient has to start a different pain regimen to help get that under control. So they'll come to the hospice home for a few days just to have that 24-hour nursing care in case something does happen until they're able to get their pain figured out, essentially. It is also available for respite care for caregivers. So maybe the caregiver just needs a break and they need to be able to, maybe they want to be able to go and meet their friends for coffee without feeling guilty about, is their loved one going to be okay at home by themselves? Maybe they have to go out of town for a wedding or a funeral. So the hospice home is a great resource, and that is a 6-bed facility.
Do people contact you? Do people reach out to you? Do doctors put people in contact with Cedar Valley? How does that work?
Yes, so anyone can make a referral to our organization. So we have had patients themselves call and say that they think they're ready for hospice. We have had doctors call us. We have had pastors, members of the clergy. We've had neighbors. We've had siblings. We've had children. So anyone can make a referral. They just need to call us, and then we go and we send an admissions nurse to go and assess them and see if they do qualify for hospice. And to qualify, you have to have a diagnosis that is life-limiting, such as cancer, Alzheimer's, heart disease, COPD, things like that, and a estimation of 6 months or less to live, in addition to not receiving curative treatment. That is the big thing with hospice, is you cannot be receiving curative treatment.
What is your greatest challenge, Anika, with this job?
My greatest challenge would probably have to be not letting each patient and each family member's grief become my own, because it is a very emotionally challenging job to be in. And I say this, I could not do the work that our clinical staff does day in and day out. Granted, I probably should not be a nurse anyways, regardless of where it is at. I would not trust myself with that. That is not my skill set, and I am very grateful for those who have that. Even before I started this job, I had found her name is Beth Stillman. She essentially gives TED Talks, and I had found one a while back that is just called How to Say It, and it is about how to tell someone that their loved one has died and how to say the word dead, because that's not something that people, especially in the medical field, are taught, because they feel like if someone has died, it is a failure on them. So it's very, very hard. But one of the most impactful lines from that is, and it's highlighted and hung in my office, is one day grief will be mine, but not tonight. So when I have the wonderful opportunity to talk to our loved ones who have had patients on our program, it can be very, very hard to just not start crying with them. That grief is not mine. I'm not going to try to take that from them.
Right.
That's the most challenging part.
Right.
You see it when news people talk about someone who has died, or people in families talk about, they always say they passed on, or she lost her husband, or this sort of thing. They never want to say, well, her husband is dead.
Yes.
It's a word they don't want to say.
Oh, of course not.
And to me, I guess that's what you should say. And she lost her husband. I said, well,
where'd he
did
go?
you look for him? Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
yes.
And so,
No.
but to me, it's to say something is dead is factual.
Yes.
And,
Yep.
But many people go out of the way to avoid saying that.
Yes,
And so
the phrase expired is
Yeah.
one that we hear
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot. And again, they are a person, they are not milk.
Yeah.
So it's another line from that TED Talk. I can't take credit for that one.
Thank you.
It'd be easy if you had a date on the back of your head.
And then you know, but-
then as you balded, you could slowly be exposed. You say, oh, okay, you got 2 years left, John. Okay, so you make life a lot easier. So,
But no, Cedar Valley Hospice is really unique in the fact that we have a designated grief counselor who works exclusively with children.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she always says is to use concrete language because children, they have very magical thinking is the phrase that she uses a lot. So using phrases like dead instead of passed on or, well, grandma went to sleep. Well, what happens then if I go to sleep and I don't wake up?
yeah.
There's a lot of different things. So using words like died and dead are very, very important.
There was a little girl going to be in my class. I probably can't do this emotionally. She was going to be in my class in the fall, and she died just like a few days before school. She was in an accident. She was riding on a moped or something, was hit by a car. Her brother was driving. And so the parents came in to talk to the class about the little girl dying.
Yeah.
And we were scared to death in some ways because you let strangers speak to your class, and you don't have no control what they're going to say, and then you don't want them to say the wrong thing, and then that,
Right.
inflects. But they did a wonderful job of explaining about the little girl's
Good.
death and everything. So,
Yeah, I can remember that event. I didn't know they came in
yeah,
class
they came
and
in and
spoke.
they had a little plaque and a picture of the little girl, and that was in the old school.
You know, you talked about, Anika, caregivers. In our culture and in our society, probably the most underappreciated people that there are, unpaid,
Yep.
on
No time off.
no time off. Their family members are not in an exceptionally good mood
No,
for obvious reasons.
Right. You have your own bias as to how your loved one should be treated based on your individual relationship with them as well. So there's a lot of, when you have a loved one who is dying and they're not going to get better, emotions are off the charts. So it's very, very valuable to just have a resource like Cedar Valley Hospice available to either provide respite care or be there to provide any sort of care really that's needed.
Well, Anika, how do our listeners, if they need to, get in contact with Cedar Valley?
Yeah, definitely. So at any time, they can call our Waterloo Support Center, regardless of where they are located, and then we can send out an admissions nurse, and our number is 319-272-2002. At any time, they can also go on our website, cvhospice.org, and we have a contact form on our website for more non-emergent things. So we have people send in requests either for presentations or maybe they are just requesting more information just in case something may happen. We've had people submit requests for grief counseling on there and get information about our grief support groups. So either one of those options are more than available.
Mm-hmm. Well, Anika, is there anything that Dale or I didn't ask you that you want us to know?
I would just say that hospice is not something to be scared of because this phrase may sound a little morbid, but everyone that you know will die. It is an absolute truth. We have not found someone yet who has been born and who will not die. So it is very important to be informed and be prepared before a crisis situation occurs. So that way, all the decisions can be laid out. Get your advance directives done, your living wills, your DNRs, all of that stuff, because that way your wishes are ready and it's not reliant on anyone else.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank you
Anika.
very
Of
much.
course. Thank you for having me.
Well done. The Arts Center is a 501c3, and if you would like to donate to the Steve Brown Arts Center or have an idea for an event, go to stevebrownartscenter.org and follow the link. The next two events we have, August 17th, we have a youth talent show in the park in association with Lunch in the Park, and then September 15th, we are showing Mort Donnelly's art at the Jesup Public Library. We will have a food truck, and we will have music that day. That will be from probably 5 till 7. The day, 2 hours before the football game. Then you can stop down, get lunch or get supper, and see the incredible art done by Mort Donnelly.
Yeah. We had him when my son graduated. My son had Freddie Richards was one of them, and the Hard Boys that hung out together. And so my wife and we gave their pictures to Mort Donnelly, and he drew caricatures of them in a card game. And then we had a print made of each one and gave it to the boys when they graduated from high school, the same year as Chris did. And I was so impressed with it, but I hope it seemed to mean a lot to those kids when we gave it to them. I hope they still have those and look at it every night, because he just did a fantastic job with those, and it was a tragic loss when he died.
It was. I was talking to Nick Donnelly. That's where I started in pursuit to get Mort's art, and Nick has 6 of Mort's work. And Nick figures that family probably has about 100 pieces between children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
And it's our goal to get about 15 of the pieces in the community center that day to show and let the family come out and show what they have, because Mort, like you say, Mort was an incredible person.
Yeah.
If you have news or would like to sponsor us, email us at jim@stevebrownartcenter.org or call 319-290-0241 and leave a message. The year is going fast, Mr. Rueber.
Really
We're not far from starting school here.
Yep.
And I try to go fishing on the first day of school.
Oh, you should come to lunch. All the old teachers get together and have lunch that day.
They do.
Yes. Yeah.
They do. All right. Well,
All the retired school employees.
I'll be thinking
around
about,
here. You'll be thinking.
I'll be thinking about you when I'm on the river.
Okay.
All right.
Good for you.
Thank you so much for listening. I'm Jim Gillespie. Thanks to co-host Dale Rueber. Our producers Blake Tempus and Kelly Seahas at Cowork 591 Studios. Thanks to the audience for bringing these stray dogs into your day. Next week, we will have a very special show. Mike Sorensen from Sumner, Iowa, is joining us. He has over 35,000 autographs, and Mike has some incredible stories of getting those autographs. Okay. And so Dale and I are excited about that.
Now, you're going to give him yours, or you're going to charge for it?
If he asks me for it, I'll give it to him.
Okay.
Thanks to the audience again. Remember, each day is about little victories.
That's for sure.